I was choosing an axe for myself. One that fit my hand, with a weight I could easily hold and use. This axe was a Christmas gift for me and also a gift for my 2-month-old daughter. Her name was Angel. I loved her and could do anything for her. I even went so far as to cut down a fir tree without a permit. I hated the paperwork that people nowadays always exaggerated. 2 years earlier, when I was 14, Adam had married me through a matchmaker my family had found. I went to my husband's house posing as his cousin. It was disgusting, because now I was not even recognized as Angel's mother. A sharp pain in my lips reminded me I had nearly bitten through them. I had been hesitating at this axe shop for more than 20 minutes and still hadn't chosen the perfect axe. Why should I pick a perfect one when every axe was already perfect? I unwrapped the largest axe there, placed it in the cart, and pushed it forward. I chose the axe just as my parents had chosen a husband for me. Whichever man was the biggest, whichever looked the most experienced. They threw me at him. I lived with my husband's family without a marriage certificate. We held a wedding at midnight and ended it when my husband's heavy body lay beside me. He stank like a pig ready for slaughter, and he made the same kind of noise. My mother had told me men were animals, the only difference being that this kind of animal could protect you. In contrast, pigs are primarily raised for butchering. Hello, little girl. Are you taking your sister shopping for Christmas? Cashier Clarissa raised her voice when she saw me, always acting as if I were a silly child hanging around here, giggling and doing foolish things. And then those girls showed up. They were dressed in black coats and black pants, busy doing something together. Are those your friends? Clarissa asked. One of them has stolen from my store. I shook my head. No, I'm homeschooled. How much is it? After paying, I left the shop for my car. My husband was in the driver's seat, holding his head and staring into nothingness in despair. I knocked on the window, he startled, got out, and loaded the goods into the back for me while I climbed into the rear seat to nurse my baby. I frowned at him and said, "You always wait in the car. These bags aren't light, you know." "I'm sorry, I don't like crowds," he said, avoiding my eyes as he climbed back behind the wheel. Mother said that by the time I was 18, things would be easier for us. Yes, I know. The car began to move. I stroked Angel. Her hair carried the faint scent of baby shampoo. I kissed her forehead, breathing in that tender fragrance. Through the window I saw us turning onto 16th Street, leaving the bustling town behind for a deep, deserted pine forest. My daughter cried, and I nursed her again. This was the only thing I knew about being a mother. If she cried, she was hungry, and if she was hungry, she needed milk. My family's house appeared. It was a 2-story wooden house, its frame stained by time, the planks on the outer walls weather-worn gray from the rain, but the roof was thick and steep enough to withstand the winter snow. The front door was made of solid pine, its hinges screeching each time it opened, and a yellow lamp beside it lit up when the sky turned dark. When the car stopped, I straightened my clothes and stepped out carrying my baby. Ben, my brother-in-law, 14 years old, ran toward me. He wanted to grab my daughter, but I turned away from him and warned him not to do so. "Careful, she'll cry. Let me hold her." Ben's dirty fingers touched Angel's cheek, smudged with a thin layer of soil, probably from the mud he had just been playing with. I clenched my teeth, watching him smear bacteria on her skin, while my husband carried the goods inside. Peter, my father-in-law, stood at the doorway. His gray eyes fell on the axe I had just bought. He asked, "What did you buy an axe for?" "I want to cut a fir tree for this Christmas," I answered, holding Angel away from Ben and stepping inside. As I turned, the boy suddenly shouted, startling me. "Oh my God, look! A baby sparrow!" I hurried to where the boy stood. Angel squirmed in my arms, but I held her tight. I focused on Ben's hands. He was holding a hatchling. I only knew it was a bird because it was very small and made a weak little sound. But Ben insisted it was a sparrow, so I would accept that it was a baby sparrow. The hatchling's eyes were shut. Its body was curled up, with only a few sparse feathers on its back. It looked as if it had died from the cold, but the faint rise and fall of its tiny chest told me otherwise. Why was it here? I asked. I leaned in and breathed in the soft, warm scent of Angel's hair. It calmed me for a second. Maybe it fell from the tree, Ben answered, cupping his hands together to keep the hatchling as warm as possible. Put it back in its nest. I can do that. I pointed at the old birdhouse on a branch above. We'd built it years ago, though I'd never seen a bird use it. No, I'll keep it. It'll freeze to death. Ben stepped back, creating a wide space between me and the hatchling. You have to put it back in the nest. What if the mother can't find her chick? I snapped. She'll lay another brood. Birds lay so many eggs at once. I want to keep this one. He hugged the hatchling and ran off. I wanted to chase him, to snatch the hatchling and return it to its nest. But my father-in-law called. You should go inside now. Let the boy be. He'll play with it a few days and then forget. I pressed my lips together and nodded at him. Something inside me grew much angrier. I held my child close. I didn't want her to fall to the ground like that poor hatchling. Peter reached out and took Angel from my arms. Go help your mother-in-law with dinner, he said. Then he asked when I planned to cut the tree. Tomorrow, I told him. Christmas is near. My mother-in-law fussed in the kitchen over the stew, and I helped her prepare another dish. I can't believe she divorced again. I'm sure she divorced for the alimony. Those selfish people, she told me, recounting a story about a woman in town who had divorced twice and retained custody both times. Of course she got custody. Courts always believe women. But what do they know about raising a child? Men are more stable, stronger. I nodded and smiled. Yes, I think so too. Yet thoughts of the hatchling being taken away and my mother-in-law's words circled in my mind all evening. I helped clear the table, then everyone gathered around to eat, like pigs crowding a trough. We sniffed and snuffled at one another, wagged our tails, and stuffed each other's ears with trivial talk. But that never stopped me from thinking of them as a pack of savage wolves, waiting to pounce on me and my child and crunch our bones. I had to do something to protect myself, something to protect my daughter, to keep her with me forever. After eating, I cleaned the table while the in-laws lounged watching television like livestock. Those animals did not care about the one who fed them and cleaned their trough. I realized I hated all of them. I had once thought that, no matter what, I needed them to exist, like a herdsman who must keep animals for food even if he despises them. When the chores were done, I buried myself in his body reeking of booze and sweat and used that as an excuse to go to bed. In the bedroom I held my baby and played with her. Looking into those clear brown eyes tightened my chest. An idea sprouted in my mind like an embryo taking shape. My husband soon fell asleep. It was only me and the child. When she closed her eyes and the household settled into sleep, I slipped quietly outside, swallowed by the darkness. The in-laws kept few lights on, only a few red blinks from an outlet. Down the stairs, to the right was a small switch signaling I was awake, but I did not flip it. My father had taught me to walk in the woods by moonlight, by the feel of skin brushing the space. Since coming to this house I had never turned on a light at night, because here I was an outsider, forced to tread carefully. My new axe was now hidden in a cupboard under the kitchen. That was where I had told my mother-in-law to leave it. I had bought it originally to cut a fir tree for my daughter, but now it could serve another purpose. That was why every woman should have an axe. You never knew when you might need it. With the axe in my hands, I stepped softly into my father-in-law's room. They never locked their doors, fearing one day someone might suddenly stroke and no one would know. My father-in-law's eyes were closed, his hand draped over his wife, his mouth open like a hatchling waiting for its mother to feed it. I placed the thin blade of the axe against the man's neck and made a quick cut. A spray of blood splattered my face and across my mother-in-law. She woke, muttering something I didn't care about. I swung the axe and struck her face. My father-in-law was not dead. He writhed and knocked the alarm clock off the bedside table. So I struck him again. After that I could no longer see their faces clearly. I struck several more blows to be sure they were dead before leaving the room. I shut the door behind me. I guessed my fingerprints were smeared all over the doorknob. Never mind. Police would never know it was me. I slowly carried the axe to my husband's room. He should have been alive to care for me and our child, but after what I had done to his family, he would not care for us anymore. When I placed the blade against my husband's neck, I could feel his breath clearly. Inhale, exhale, inhale. Then stop. His throat convulsed. Saiga. I stopped him from speaking and repeated what I had done to his parents. Sounds rang in my ears, like when I tenderized a piece of beef before putting it in the pan, like when I crushed a potato so it flattened and blurred into a blooming flower. It was as if I were cooking and tending my family. Angel's cry startled me. I knocked the lamp to the floor, rushed outside, slammed the bedroom door shut, and hid in the shadows of the staircase. Just as Ben grumbled his way out of the room, his hand touched Adam's blood-soaked doorknob. The door creaked open, and I hurled myself straight at the boy. He fought back, grabbed a shard of glass, and slashed it against my eye, burning it with pain. He struggled to seize my axe, clinging desperately to his wretched life. Everything was chaos, messy and reeking of blood. Most of the struggle was filled with screams, with our ragged breaths, with the sound of him slamming me to the ground, yanking at my hair, the damned hair I should have cut off long ago. I barely knew how things unfolded. I only remembered my daughter crying until her voice broke, until she had no sound left. My body ached, drenched in the blood of my brother-in-law. Ben lay on top of me, his breath weakening. His final resistance was to try to strangle me, but he failed. He lost. A foul, musky stench filled my nose. I could not tell whether it came from him or from my husband's body. A sharp crack rang out as I shoved Ben aside and sat up. And then I froze, staring at the creatures near my daughter. Two hairy beasts stood over her cradle. One of them was clutching her in its arms. Their snouts were long like rats, their eyes black as a starless night. I forced myself to stand, swinging the axe toward them. Their screeches pierced the air with agony. "Give her back to me," I shouted, swinging the axe at the one holding my child. The wounded creature leapt onto my head, its claws slashing across my face, leaving me reeling and staggering. Angel's cry rose again, tightening my chest. Pain shot through my arm. The wall split open, revealing a void of darkness, and the beast carrying my daughter fled into the crack. I blinked, dizzy, and the one clinging to me scurried into the darkness as well. Crawling, dragging myself forward, I reached the rift. My body was breaking, but my will remained, to protect my daughter, to save her from the clutches of those fiends. I forced myself through. As I crossed, the rift sealed shut behind me, vanishing into nothing. Now only a fog-shrouded void stretched behind. My daughter's whimpering echoed from somewhere ahead, mingled with the faint hiss of creatures whose names I did not know. I gripped my axe tight, staggered to my feet, and strained my blurred vision for her tiny form. Beneath me, the ground was slick, muddy, sucking me down deeper with each step. Deeper and deeper still, until my body sank almost entirely. Only my head remained above the muck. I tilted my face to the sky and waited for death. A four-legged beast appeared beside me. Black, massive. A bear, or something that only looked like one. Its face was torn open, eyes hollow pits, its body stinking of wild decay. It lowered its head beside mine, jaws of iron fangs yawning wide, and roared a sound of horror. It dragged me back to the memory of the bear I faced when I was 7. It had stood so close, growling, ready to rip me apart as I clutched firewood. I thought I was dead then. Fear ate at me, freezing my legs. At that moment, my father gifted it a bullet. The beast collapsed before it could tear me apart, and I fainted before hearing the final shots that ended its life. Now, my body was too tired, too broken, too numb to feel fear. I leaned into the zombie bear's jaws, hoping it would end everything. Angel's face flashed in my mind. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I realized I would never see her grow, never see her smile again. I closed my eyes and let the beast's fangs press against my skin, surrendering to the sleep that would take me far away. She had been submerged in greenish water inside a sack made of intestine. My daughter was inside that sack. She was wriggling, bending her body. Then there was a cracking sound. The baby kicked and tore open the reddish intestinal pouch. She crawled out and dived into the water. She flailed, trying to find something to cling to and save her tiny life. She opened her mouth for a breath and only kept choking. I tried to swim to Angel to grab her, but something at my feet pulled me back. I thrashed, but I couldn't break free. I was helpless as the baby's cries pierced my eardrums. When I opened my eyes again, I realized I still wasn't dead. In front of me was something dark gray. It took me a long time to recognize it as the ceiling of a cave. I looked around. From the sputtering flame, to the layers of stone piled on one another, to a bare pelt lying flattened on the ground, I realized I was inside a cavern. A woman with a face covered in raised scars and straggly hair was looking at me. She wore a black and white speckled fur and a stray hair stuck to her ugly face that made me want to reach out and brush it off. "Awake yet?" she rumbled. I nodded and forced myself to sit up. The woman handed me a stick with a piece of blackened meat and said, "Eat." Then she added, "So you can speak English." I focused on eating the meat. I needed strength if I was going to get my child back. The meat was bitter and made my stomach clench. I had never in my life eaten anything that tasted so awful. I turned my attention back to the woman in front of me. "You know the four-legged rat-like creatures with bite marks like this?" I showed her my bite. "Where are they? Why are you looking for them? Do you want to go back to that world?" she asked. "I need to find my child. My child is in their hands." "You will find her," the woman said, tossing her head before introducing herself. "Call me the seer." "Saiga," I said. "Why were you here?" "Monsters stole my child. I wanted to get her back." "You must have gone through a terrible struggle." The seer let her eyes sweep over my body. My body was covered in bruises, open wounds, and dried bloodstains. I nodded, then asked, "How will I save my child?" "I will help you rescue the baby and help you return home." The seer fed more wood to the fire. The cave grew a little colder as the log briefly blocked some of the heat. "That's good, thank you." I should have asked how she knew, but I decided that would be unnecessary. I needed my child and she could help me get her back. That was enough. There was no need to become friends. You're probably wondering how I knew. I am a prophet. I can foresee the future. Among the many possible outcomes, I saw myself meeting you in the mudflat, and I also saw that you would need to save your child. When I touched you, I felt that I would help you. I swallowed the meat in my mouth, nodded when she stopped speaking, and asked, "How will you help me?" "We will go find the herd of Cracked, then find Connected to send you back. Their bite opens a door to go in or come out. The bite of Cracked will bring you in. Connected will help you return to where you were." Connected were quite timid. They lived in very large herds. To approach them, you had to be very careful and silent. We would have to separate one so it felt threatened, then it would bite you. And Cracked. How would we find them? How would we kill them? Saiga leaned forward to bask in the warmth of the fire.